Hello class, and welcome to my lecture on the UNESCO World Heritage Site. I've chosen the River Seine for a number of reasons. The River Seine is a river in France which flows through Paris. It was adopted for a World Heritage Site due to its stunning array of buildings, cathedrals, and building methods that capture its people and culture of over 8 centuries. A good way to look at it is the River Seine in the city of Paris is divided into two parts. There's an upstream and a downstream. The upstream is known for the port and river transport, and downstream is known as more of the royal and aristocratic Paris. In its entirety, the River Seine starts in northeast France, as you can see on the map here, and it flows through Paris and ends at the English Channel at Le Havre, which translates into the harbor. It runs for about 777 kilometers. Excuse me. The city of Paris is known as a river city. It played both defensive and economic roles in the growth and development of France and Paris specifically. It was a highway system for trade, transport of goods, food, information. And again, this was over the course of 8 centuries. The present city, as we know, developed between the 16th and 20th century. Some of the historical sites are the Louvre, which is the world's largest museum, as you can see here. The Pont Neuf, it's the oldest standing bridge across the River Seine. It was completed in 1607, and the Palace de la Concorde, which is located in the 8th arrondissement, it was completed in 1772. It's about a 19-acre, it's a major public square, it's about 19 acres, as well as the Cathedral of Notre Dame. The Cathedral of Notre Dame, located in the 4th arrondissement, construction began on it in 1163. It took 183 years to build, and then it was opened. And finally, some of the notable aspects of the River Seine is the Pantheon. Now, the Pantheon was built in 1758. It was completed in 1790. And it was a church dedicated to the patron saint of Paris, Saint Genevieve. It was then converted into a mausoleum for the remains of distinguished French citizens. Some of those distinguished French citizens include Alexander Dumas, Napoleon, Rousseau, Marie Curie, Madame Curie, who was the French-Polish physicist who discovered radiation. They're all buried at the Pantheon, including Voltaire. Now, Francois-Marie Arouet, who became known as Voltaire, was born in 1694 in Paris. He had established himself as one of the leading writers of the Enlightenment. Voltaire was mostly known for his belief in the separation of church and state and religious freedom, if you recall from the texts in our Lualdi. Also, if you recall from Professor Hockley's lecture number 5, the Enlightenment was a period of great political revolutions and ideas which ultimately led to the French Revolution of 1789. Also, the ideas of this time period reflect an origin of sorts to how this country and its founding principles and ideas were formed, with separation of church and state and constitutionalism. Interestingly enough, Voltaire left France in 1726 and he travels to England, where he learns English, and he produces he wrote letters back to friends in France, namely John Locke, where he wrote letters concerning the English nation in 1733. The method of travel he most likely used was the Seine River. he most likely took it north and on into the English Channel for the quick jump on over to England. He fled to England. He lived there for several years and continued to write. He was in exile because of the back and forth that he had with the church and state officials back in France. Let's see. Voltaire's heart, interesting and fun fact. Voltaire ended up returning to France in 1778, and a day later he ended up dying. And interestingly enough, the Salon d'Honneur is where the customs at the time was they harvested the organs of famous and influential people. They boiled down the organs and they harvested his heart and his brain, and the government got their hands. They were all sold privately throughout the next 120 years, and then in 1924 the French government had his heart interred at the Salon d'Honneur. Anyhow, yeah, just a quick recap. The River Seine, major influence on the area because of its location and due to it being basically a highway from the northeast all the way to the sea in the English Channel. Voltaire would have taken this route on his way over to England during his exile, and that is all I have for the River Seine. Thanks for watching.